Ang Lee's Incredible Hulk film was interesting. I feel as though they tried to make it this surreal kind of experiment, much like the Hulk itself, the gamma testing and all that, but they didn't quite nail it. Because honestly, Bruce Banner's past is a gold mine. They went into the nature of David Banner and his relationship with his wife, his son, his mental instability, him murdering his wife and traumatizing his son. I mean, there's a gold mine to go through in terms of that backstory and how that trauma personifies itself within the Incredible Hulk. But there's just all these things that are off with the presentation, from the transitions to the setup of certain scenes to the way certain things are done. It is always just kind of off-putting to a certain degree. You feel confused, even though it's a very straightforward situation. I mean, the usual thing of, Bruce is doing some gamma testing. You have Ross breathing down his neck. The fact that Ross was involved with Bruce's father and having that be the building of the animosity that he has towards Bruce, I mean, it feels like you really do have the concoction for a really good Hulk story. And it really gives justification to Ross having that animosity towards Bruce and that worry about Betty having this relationship with him. Now, you don't have the bomb testing and all that. It's just a device called a gamma sphere or whatever that Bruce tries to save one of their colleagues from. So he still does it out of this sense of trying to save someone. It shows the good within him, but he ends up being irradiated and put into the hospital. And it's hinted that the mutation also comes from David Banner, which was true in the comics. David experimented on himself. It ended up affecting his child, and that's ultimately what allowed Bruce to survive the gamma bomb. There was more layers to it, mostly as the Hulk series went along. And David being this monster to Bruce, to being this lurking shadowy figure, it really did feel like that was an interesting route to go. Because David Banner was this monster to Bruce. And having Ross questioning Bruce, thinking that he's in connection with his father and somehow that being the driving force to why Ross and Banner have this much friction between them. And David lurking in the shadows to get a rise out of Bruce to further his mutation. And ultimately Bruce does turn into the Hulk, although it's like halfway through the damn movie pretty much. But he goes off to save Betty from the experimental gamma dogs from his father. And a lot of people found it weird, but it's just like, dude, if you've ever read a Hulk comic, gamma dogs are the least of the weird things you've ever read in a Hulk comic. But ultimately, Bruce is subdued. Ross thinks that he's just following in his father's footsteps and he's a lost cause. David subjects himself to the experiments and becomes essentially the absorbing man, where he's able to meld with certain things here and there. And then you have General Talbot, who tries to take things over from Ross because he's just completely against Bruce to the most extreme degree. But David comes after Betty, but surrenders himself, just saying he wants to speak with his son one last time. Bruce ends up transforming because of Talbot egging him on. So many events come from people egging Bruce on to transform in this movie. And because of that, Talbot ends up essentially getting himself killed in the crossfire trying to take the monster down. It's not even Bruce's fault, really. It's because Talbot wouldn't lay the fuck off. So Talbot's dead. Ross reassumes control. Bruce heads out, does the whole big battle in the desert with the tanks and all that good stuff. The stuff that's really memorable about that movie, which is funny because it's like the last, 30 minutes of the movie that even happens ends up in San Francisco, because if it's not happening in New York, it's happening in San Francisco. But Betty manages to get Ross to take her to the Hulk. It gets them to calm down. Bruce goes to David, in cooperation with Ross, because Ross got to see that Talbot was blowing things out of proportion, making it worse, and they just want David locked up and put away. But David just wants Bruce's power. He just wants his son for his power and all that. Of course, Bruce refuses, wanting nothing to do with his dad. David bites into this high voltage cable, absorbs the energy, becomes essentially what looks like Zaz from the comics, this being of pure electrical energy. Bruce becomes the Hulk, they fight, they have this massive battle where eventually Bruce overcomes his father. Apparently his father dies after Ross decides to just drop a gamma bomb on them. Boom, big explosion. For all we know, David is dead. Bruce has gone missing. They assume he's dead as well. But, Betty is still under surveillance by order of her father and all that, because there's still Hulk sightings out there in the world. And Bruce has gone to the rainforest and has become a medical doctor. It's a really straightforward movie. It really is just the presentation that throws a lot of it off, because Ang Lee's just trying to have these comic book panels and weird stills and stuff like that, and it really does bring down an otherwise really solid movie. Just the weird artistic decisions with it. Like, I feel like this movie really did go through development hell. There were so many different concepts and decisions and twists and turns that really didn't need to be done. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just because in the earlier days of this kind of stuff, there was this need to be ambitious with it, but the comic books lay out a pretty solid storyline that if you just follow, you end up with a very decent enough film. Like, these movies didn't need to be some Shakespearean masterpiece. Like, there's definitely a solid story here about trauma, abuse, how that affects someone, how we are not our parents, that we do not have to be our parents, that just because people always see the negativity within you doesn't mean you need to embody that negative. There are a lot of themes in the stories of the Hulk, especially if you read the Hulk comic going on now. It's phenomenal. And it really does deal with Bruce's psyche and his demons, both figuratively and literally. And I feel as though it just didn't meld with the public conscious the way it should have. Like, if it was reworked at least a little bit, I feel like there's a good movie here that people could appreciate a lot more than they ever did. But because of the weird editing choices, it's just marred with this stigma that just dragged it down ultimately. But I never hated the movie. I just always felt like more could have been done. That's the thing. More could have been done. More effort could have gone in different places, because it's a solid story. Just sucks that it wasn't told like one. But tell me, what was your thoughts on the Hulk movie by Ang Lee? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you mixed on it like I am? Did you feel like the editing choices were poor, or did you actually feel like that elevated the movie? I could see someone enjoying it because of the editing. It just wasn't my cup of tea. So I'm very interested to hear from you. So let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications. And until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.